Good day, everyone. Meteorologist Mark Molnar here. How's everybody getting along? Well, unfortunately, our friends in Florida here have sustained a direct hit around Fort Myers, Cape Coral, North Port. These areas mostly south of Tampa, getting a tremendous hit from essentially what was, we could classify it so close to a Category 5. It was literally only a couple miles per hour, so to speak. 155 mile per hour Category 4. It's only been downgraded recently, but it's still, was a 4 here heading inland here. Take a look at that. So yeah, that's at 6 p.m. So yeah, heading inland. It's heading towards Orlando here. Where is the storm going? So that's exactly what we're going to go over, and the impacts. This thing becomes a buzzsaw to trees and power lines inland as we start to lower the surge threat, which is a tremendous damage in excess of some areas getting upwards of 15 to 20 feet of surge. But this is becoming an inland freshwater flooding event, and this will propagate up into parts of the Carolinas. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. All right, so take a look at this satellite photo. This goes all the way back pretty much early morning hours of Wednesday. So, the storm came in pretty much like this. Category 4, almost Category 5. Look at that. That is a monster storm that took aim right on the Fort Myers area. So that is, that pretty much, that loop there is worth 1,000 words. All right, as you can see, this is a crazy three-dimensional satellite view of this hurricane going inland, becoming a buzzsaw for trees and power lines inland. You can see even some lightning strikes around it, and look at the feeder bands here on the eastern side of this storm. There's the eye heading inland towards Orlando very slowly at an agonizing 8 miles an hour, still having storm surge and feeder bands come in. There's that southern eye wall, still causing all sorts of problems here across Cape Coral and surrounding areas like Fort Myers. All right, so getting into the GFS here, we'll take a look at that, then the Euro, and see the HRRR, also future radar. So this thing going inland, becoming a major freshwater flooding event. This is 11 p.m. Wednesday night into Thursday, 2 a.m., 5 a.m. You start to see the moisture starts to move north of Orlando by this point, but look at it. It moves up into the Jacksonville area, where we're going to see some tremendous amounts of rain here, and that kind of focuses, this is Thursday at 5 p.m. You can see the center at 2 p.m. Thursday. It's still classified as, potentially a major tropical storm, minimal hurricane type thing. So this thing maintains some tropical characteristics, and look at it. Might try, I don't think it's going to really regenerate too much. We'll see, but it will maintain its own as a very strong tropical storm. Now watch what happens as it starts to move to the north here. It loses a lot of steering currents. You can almost see it tries to form another eye. This is Friday at 5 p.m. Afternoon, evening rush hour. Yeah, it's going to be a massive mess here across the Carolinas and parts of eastern Georgia. Now let's exactly see how far north this gets. So this maintains tropical storm strength up to Columbia, South Carolina, as 45 mile per hour winds, and doesn't become a depression until it reaches the southern Appalachians. Now, is that where it's going to completely die? Well, let's take a look here. Saturday at 8 a.m. Yeah, you're going to have rain all the way from eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, and I'll go over those rainfall amounts momentarily here. And look at the northern shield, almost getting into southern Pittsburgh. Parts of Allentown, just south of Wilkes-Barre here, Scranton, and then look at that, getting up into Long Island, New York City area. Yeah, this is the biggest in southern New England. This is the northernmost extent here of the rainfall, and you see that kind of washes out to the north. You have an area, essentially, of high pressure up here, and that's going to block most of this from getting north of this blue line. But you do get some heavier downpours Saturday at 11 a.m., Your Saturday might not be so nice here across southeastern Pennsylvania, and that translates over here into New York City and parts of Long Island, where you could be getting some heavy rain, and that kind of lingers here. A second piece of energy breaks off from it back towards West Virginia and eastern Kentucky, and you can see as we continue in time here, the remnants of the storm kind of moves offshore, so you'll probably be getting some stiff northeast winds here, and at times, initially, off the ocean. So we'll see variable winds here. We could see some beach erosion and coastal erosion here later Saturday evening here off the coastline as this thing pulls to the northeast and becomes more like It's interesting. This may become a subtropical low again. As you can see, this is Sunday at 5 a.m. Look at this. Yeah, we might have some problems here. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but it gets caught up in that trough. And do we have anything else to look forward to here? Well, take a look at this. Outside of Hurricane Ian, we do have a tropical wave. We will be watching across the southern Bahamas. Let me get my pen out here. So, yeah, getting into almost eastern Cuba here. Here's eastern Cuba and the Bahamas, and then staying pretty clear across much of the rest of the Atlantic until you get out here into the intertropical convergence zone. We could see another storm. We will have a potential for another storm out here, Tropical Depression 11, but, it's not going to be anything major. And if we take a look here in the Eastern Pacific, quickly, yeah, we might have this system, day 5, 90%. This is Friday, September 30th. So we'll probably have our next named system here in the Eastern Pacific. Take a look at that. As that rides to the north, you get this hurricane that might move in here just south of Cabo San Lucas and right into Mexico there. That's Sunday, this Sunday, October 2nd. Now, if we go over here into the Western Pacific, what do I have for you? Well, Tropical Storm Roke here. And we have a typhoon up here, Kulop, and Noru is gone. That's great news because caused tremendous damage here in the Vietnam area right around Da Nang. So not good news. Do I have anything more for you here out in the Western Pacific? We'll take a look at this. Don't really have much activity. That is great news. Most of it's south here. Philippines, Vietnam look pretty clear. This is right off to Friday, October 7th. And I did want to make note before I end this part of the tropical segment, we get into the European models and the HRRR model. Look at this. Yeah, we have the potential here for some sort of tropical wave by this point approaching the Lesser Antilles. So this might be something to watch as it approaches the Caribbean. We might have another storm on our hand come the second week of October. All right, taking a look at the HRRR. It's essentially your future radar here. Storm pulling away from Cape Coral area, Northport, Fort Myers after major devastation. You know the damage reports. There's well over 1 million people from this point putting out this video. It's going to be, the numbers are going to climb tremendously. But this goes from like a category 4 at 6 p.m. here down to a category 1 by 2 a.m. early Thursday morning. And look how this just buzzsaws inland. You have these feeder bands and the eye wall staying pretty well intact as it approaches South Orlando. This is getting into 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Thursday morning, 3 a.m. Look how agonizingly slow. You have this northern eye wall staying intact. The southern eye wall at this point is pretty well washed out, but you still have some wind gusts on that southern eye wall, what's left of it. So keep an eye on that. You're still going to have some problems. But, the big problem is going to become this tremendous rainfall totals. In some of these areas, we could see anywhere from 12 to 18 inches of rain locally, higher amounts possible. But look at this. We continue into 5 a.m., 6 a.m., Thursday morning, 7 a.m. You can see the center is trying to emerge off the coastline here. You can see the center of circulation, almost like a half-shaped eye here, so to speak. And look at this. It's starting to get entrained into the westerlies here. You can see this kind of northeasterly fetch, and then you got the feeder bands feeding into this. This is starting to look more like a frontal boundary more than a tropical system, but believe me, it is still a tropical system. It's just got a lot of moisture to work with here, and there it is. By Thursday at 11 a.m., that's moving just off the coastline here, and we're still dealing with, it's going to be a big, stiff northeasterly wind here. Tremendous rainfall totals from Jacksonville down to Daytona Beach. All right, so if we get over to the Euro here, taking a look, moving inland here, pretty much in line with the GFS. Let's back that up just a few frames. So yeah, right over Orlando. This is early Thursday morning, just before sunrise. And then moving up along the coastline here, Friday. This is early Friday morning. It's still 983 millibars here on the Euro. So a very strong tropical storm, potentially borderline Category 1 hurricane. And the Euro does take this down to like 979, 980 millibars. This is by Friday, entering the afternoon period. So we will have some tropical storm or hurricane conditions here along the southeast Georgia coastline into South Carolina. So watch out for that. And the big story is going to be the tremendous rain. If we take a look, we'll switch regions here. We'll go into the mid-Atlantic and watch how the Euro blossoms this north as well. Saturday morning, look at this, all the way up to Interstate 80 in Pennsylvania. The Euro's bringing this low a little bit farther to the north. There is the precipitation shield, even getting up into Long Island, parts of southern New England, but it will have a hard time getting north of Interstate 80 here in Pennsylvania. So as the Euro progresses, there it is. It breaks into two pieces of energy, one to the west here and one to the east. So watch out here. This is Sunday, early morning hours. All right, so taking a look at the Euro here, let's just back this up a couple frames. So essentially what's going on, this is by early Thursday morning just before sunrise. So the storm is just south of Orlando at this point. You have all this dry air wrapping around, so you won't have any feeder bands across South Florida. That's the good news. You know, this is upwards of 700 to 300 hectopascals in the atmosphere here. So yeah, it's rather interesting here that this system's going to start resembling more of a cold core system, although it's still warm core. So don't get me wrong here. The core is still warm. You have all the moisture to the north and to the east here. That's where the dry air is wrapping around on the backside of the system because it's a cyclonic flow. But look at that. That dry air really starts to wrap in towards the southeast. So if you're in South Carolina, your precipitation, thankfully, along the coast will probably be cut off pretty quick on Saturday, Friday afternoon into Saturday here. And look how that just coils up to the north. This might actually be your saving grace up here into parts of the mid-Atlantic. This dry air kicking in from the south in the mid-levels and upper levels might actually cut off the precipitation quite quicker. And if we take a look at the radar loop all the way back through the real early morning hours of Wednesday, you can see there it is moving inland. But look where it started, way out here. This was essentially really early morning hours before sunrise. This storm moving up just like this. Just a tremendous damage as this eastern eye wall plowed in right starting at lunchtime and heading on through 4:30 p.m. And I wanted to zoom in here and briefly show you the areas. If you live in any of these areas, look at these towns, how the eye wall affected your town. Yeah, it's humbling. And really our hearts and prayers go out to all these people because this is something you never want to live through. You know, we talk about it in the media, all the damage. And sometimes you have to connect that these are actually real people's lives here. And Fort Myers, some of the photos and videos coming out of there, some of those streaming video cams, it's just unbelievable. The amount of damage that occurred out of this hurricane. So there you have it. There's all the towns greatly affected. There's, if we go a little bit further south here, Cape Coral, all these areas towards the south. Naples received tremendous amount of water as well, down towards Marco Island. So there you have it. All right, so rainfall totals are going to be staggering, although thankfully the system's moving a little bit faster than expected, although 8 miles an hour, that's not much. But look at this. We're going to see 12 to 18 inches of rain in some of these really dark oranges and browns here. But the average rainfall, as you can see, right across Orlando is about 10 to 11 inches here. Of course, 13 inches down here north of Fort Myers. This is staggering amounts. 13 inches here just south of Jacksonville. Jacksonville itself right around 10 inches. And we start to get up here into the Carolinas for Friday and the weekend here. Let's get up into the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll take a look at rainfall totals. How far north does the Euro go? Well, here's what we got. This is pretty interesting. Yeah, parts of South Carolina into eastern Georgia could be upwards of 4 to 6 inches. And then this is an interesting feature here that could be occurring as the system initially moves to the north later Friday night and Saturday. Look at some of these totals here across northern Virginia, eastern Virginia, up into parts, even southern Pennsylvania here and West Virginia. 4 to 6 inches of rain, 6 to 8 inches in some of these localized amounts. Some of these coastal areas. Look at this, Long Island. 2 inches. That's pretty remarkable here. So let's keep an eye on that. All right, so GFS here painting a very similar picture, although it's not as far to the north as the Euro here. So we'll take a look at the upper air charts and see what's going on there momentarily as to why that could be occurring. But look at this. Yep, it's definitely eastern Georgia here, the Carolinas and Virginia. You're going to be seeing quite a bit of the ray of rain, 3 to 5 inches with locally higher 4 to 6 inches possible. And here it is for the GFS. Yeah, the GFS is a bit more staggering. Look at that, 23 inches here just west of Daytona Beach. That is wow, in Orlando, 19. We're going to have to keep an eye on this because if the GFS verifies, we could be seeing a tremendous amount of flooding here across much of Northeast Florida. So keep an eye on this and look at that up into the Carolinas as well with the 4 to 6 inch amount. All right, so upper air pattern here, essentially Ian initially being pulled north by this little trough that's lifting out, high pressure replacing it. Ian doesn't have anywhere to go, so to speak. So it heads northwest. It drifts northwest. And it can't go to the north because of this massive ridge. You got a ridge to the east as well. And these two are working together to block Ian. And look at Ian starts retrograding next week, Tuesday. It starts moving back southeast. Will this regenerate out over the Atlantic? We'll see. I don't think it, it might regenerate into something as I showed you on the GFS. It might become another sort of a subtropical storm as it tries to pull to the northeast here. Let's see if it has any. Yeah, it kind of gets pulled up there into the Canadian Maritime, so to speak. And let's take a look. And take a look at the Euro here. Euro is a bit more pronounced on the trough, kicking, off the coast. Here's the trough. This is early Thursday morning. So as we continue in time here, let's see. High pressure. Yep, just like on the Euro. These two high pressures working together to block Ian. Let's see if it, pretty much retrogrades it towards the southeast, although not as much. This is Tuesday, so it's still kind of over land here. Euro's wanting to take the storm a little bit more towards the north and ruin the weather across parts of the mid-Atlantic. But look at that. It finally starts kicking out, although it might clip parts of southeastern New England, so want to watch out for that. But look what kind of pattern starts to take over here. This, my friend, is more reminiscent of summer, although this isn't. You see this up in the northeast? That definitely isn't. As always, I want to thank you for joining me for this edition of Weather Eastern and Hurricane Eastern. Don't forget Facebook, social media, MediaMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Hurricane Northeastern, also Susquehanna Weather, also MediaMark.com, WeatherNortheastern.com, Twitter @WeatherEastern. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell button if you haven't already. Question or comment down below. Let's keep the weather conversation going. Thanks for joining me.